I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders, great millstone who rule well and teach well through the Spirit, and a mighty shalom to the hopeful elect in the same Spirit. Lord willing, y'all continue in sound doctrine. Shalom to the Aquath that are believers of his faith and his truth. Lord willing, that you continue to pursue in your lot, which is being a loving and silent and virtuous wife. And Lord willing, the Most have mercy on the other brothers and sisters that's not in the faith. This is another Ask ChatGPT. I had this thought for like 2 weeks, which, a lot of Christians and just anybody always want to have a damn debate, or they're confused about Gentiles. And, multiple brothers been going into these lessons fluently, so I decided to use this moment to do a ChatGPT. And this is the question I asked. I said, why doesn't anyone in the New Testament tell dispersed or scattered Gentiles that they are truly Israelites? This is what ChatGPT said. That's a strong question. It touches on one of the key debates in how the New Testament is read and understood, especially in regarding to who the Gentiles are. So let's see some of these points. The language of Gentiles in the Greek, I would believe it would say ethnos, right? So it says the word, technically ethnos, means nations, or peoples. Depending on context, it can mean non-Israelites, heathen idolaters, Israelite living among the nations, Hellenized Jews, or dispersed Israelites. This overlap means the apostles didn't always need to clarify whether they were speaking to scattered Israelites or actual non-Israelites. Context determined it. The apostles' audience, James 1:1, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. He doesn't need to tell them you are Israelites because they already know they are Israelites in dispersion, right? Dispersed Israelites. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 1, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia, probably pronouncing it incorrectly, Salaki. Peter addresses them as strangers, right? Temporary residents, which fits Israelites scattered in foreign lands. Paul's letters often cite Israelite history, covenants, in the patriarchs, when addressing Gentiles. Romans, the 9th chapter, all the way to the 11th chapter, 1 Corinthians, the 10th chapter, verse 1, he wouldn't appeal to Abraham, Moses, or the Exodus if they were purely non-Israelite heathens. Because even when somebody said, well, it was other nations with the Israelites, but even if you look at who they probably took out, it wasn't Edomites, Elamites, Hamites, right? It was a specific certain people that actually came out of Egypt with them, right? The hidden mystery, Colossians chapter 1, verse 26 to 27, speaks of the mystery which have been hid from ages, which is Hamashiach in you. Part of that mystery was the grafting in of the dispersed Israelites and ultimately all elect believers. Romans 11th chapter uses the olive tree analogy, the wild branches, dispersed Israelites who lost their heritage, being grafted back into their own tree. Why they weren't explicitly told you are Israelites? Many have forgotten their heritage throughout Hellenization, slavery, and assimilation. Hosea, the 1st chapter, verse 9 and 10, not my people, yet ye have the sons of the living power. The apostles didn't always reteach bloodline identity. They preached repentance and faith in Yahushai. Identity revealed itself through the Spirit, right? My spirit bear witness, right, that I am a child of the living power, right? The gospel was about calling the lost sheep back, not arguing genealogy line by line. In that we already see the sheep is the Israelites, first starting with the men, right? The flock of his pasture are men. Ezekiel 34, verse 31, right? Who did he raise up to be prophets? those that were Israelites, right? The prophetic backing, Hosea 8 and 8, Israel is swallowed up. Now shall they be among the Gentiles. Go read it. Tobit chapter 13, verse 3, declare his greatness among the Gentiles, ye children of Israel. Now, I got that precept right here. Tobit 13 and 3, confess him before the Gentiles, ye children of Israel, for he have scattered us among them. This is why we're confessing Yahweh B'Shem Al Shai before the Gentiles. Even when you go to Isaiah, what is it, the 49th chapter, I believe, verse 6, being a light unto the Gentiles, that's not the other nations. Because if we was to use that for the nations now, when has the nation even said or try to fulfill saying Deuteronomy 4, 5, and 6, this is a wise and understanding nation, right? How can we be a light to the other nations when we're looked at as dogs? We're low. We're very poor. The number one thing you see promoted outside of this truth that's highly promoted, YN, young niggas, rapping, booty shaking, twerkers, stripper thoughts. So how are we going to be a light to the nation? Now, if you was to speak about being a light to the nations, I will only say that's in the kingdom if we talk about the other nations. When we look at Isaiah 49 and 6, we're being a light to the dispersed and scattered Israelites that are swallowed up in the other nations, right? So this is what we're doing today. This is what we've been doing for 56 years since this truth been out on this side, right? Lord willing, you can get it. Now, the next point, it says, these verses shows Israelites would be scattered and called Gentiles. So when apostles wrote to Gentiles, often they were really addressing Israelites living as foreigners. So the short answer is the New Testament writers didn't keep saying you're really Israelites because their letters assumed the audience already understood James 1 and 1, Peter 1 and 1, or because the message of repentance and faith was more important than proving genealogy. Through prophecy and the Spirit, the elect among the scattered will recognize the call. And this is the same what we say now. Like when you go into, like, this is a classic, this is like a basic or beginning. When you go into Isaiah chapter 1, verse 3, it says, the ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib, but Israel doeth not know. My people doeth not consider. Now, Paul and all the other apostles, what was the main books that they were reading through? Right? The laws, right? The laws, which the first 5 books of Moses. You got the history. You got Psalms, right? The prophetic wise words of Solomon. And then you got the prophets, right? And of course, when we see in St. John 10 and 22, when Yahushua spoke of Feast of Dedication, they even understood about the Apocrypha, right? But the New Testament was eventually getting written. We seen Paul, a lot of his writings happened while he was in prison, right? So a lot of these words that we're even reading, some of these words came out while Paul was in prison. So what was he using to bring forth this word? Of course, it was the spirit of Hamashiach Yahushai, but he was always teaching the law, the Psalms, and the prophets because that gave them understanding. Paul said he was a Hebrew of the Hebrew, right? He was great in the law, right? But Yahushai had to teach him, right? What is it? I think that's Galatians, the 1st chapter. This Galatians chapter 1. And I'm going to start. I think it's, let's start at verse 6. I'll even read it just in the NLT. You could read it in the KJV. It says, I am shocked that you are turning away so soon from the Most High, who called you to himself through the loving mercy of Hamashiach. You are following a different way that pretends to be the good news. but it's not the good news at all. You are being fooled by those who deliberately twist the truth concerning Hamashiach. Let the Most High curse fall on anyone, including us, or even an angel from heaven who preach a different kind of good news than the one we preach to you. I say again, what we have said before you, if anyone preaches any other good news than the one you welcome, let that person be accursed. Obviously, I'm not trying to win the approval of people, but of the Most High. If pleasing people were my goal, I would not be Hamashiach's servant. Dear brothers and sisters, I want you to understand that the gospel message I preach is not based on mere human reasoning. I received my message from no human source, and no one taught me. Instead, I received it by direct revelation from Yahushua Hamashiach. You know what I was like when I followed the Jewish or the Jews religion. Ain't no Jewish. How I violently persecuted the Most High's church. I did my best to destroy it. I was far ahead of my fellow Jews in my zeal for the traditions of my ancestors. But even before I was born, the Most High chose me and called me by his marvelous grace. Then it pleased him to reveal his son to me so that I will proclaim the good news about Yahushua to the Gentiles. When this happened, I did not rush out to consult with any human being, nor did I go up to Jerusalem to consult with those who were apostles before I was. Instead, I went away into Arabia, and later I returned to the city of Damascus. And he just keeps on going, right? But Yahushua taught him. The Spirit of the Lord compelled him, which we can go into different precepts, which him being compelled was forced through the Spirit to teach this gospel, right? And plainly, if we all had common sense, you would sit back and be like, yeah, why don't they plainly just say, oh, you're an Israelite, you're an Israelite? Or this is another question, I would ask, why didn't they distinctively speak about the nations by name, right? Because we see Jews by name, so why they didn't say Edomites or Elam? Why did they say Ham or the Perizzites, right? Or the Cushites? Why didn't it say them by name, right? That's something to think about. But I want to just say all praise to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Lord, when this is edifying to the sheep, whoever you may be, double honors to the elder apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. A mighty shalom to the hopeful elect in the same spirit. Shalom to the Akwath that are believers of this faith and this truth. Lord, willing that y'all all continue in sound doctrine and be diligent and endure. And Lord willing, Yahweh Shemashai have mercy on the other brothers and sisters that's not in the faith. With that, shalom, shalom.